Well, hi there, and welcome to the Jump to It Grand National Special. Now, in this show, we're going to be specifically focusing on the Grand National and with runner-by-runner analysis with the usual team of Vincent Finnegan and Stephen Harris. So very quickly, Stephen, come to you first. This race, does it still get the fires burning? I was going to say old there, but I'm in a good mood, so we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I do love this show. I must admit, you get that sort of feeling of excitement on the day, which I only really get at Cheltenham now and on Grand National Day. I think you've seen so much racing, it sort of washes over you generally. But the Grand National is a fantastic race. And of course, you always sort of look back to your childhood when you started getting interested in racing, Ed. And I remember, I think it was probably Corbière, probably in '83, was probably the first one I actually watched. And then Mr. Frisk is the one I remember the best because I don't know, you'd never have that race again, would you? It was like a cricket pitch, sort of firm ground. Yeah. And they went off like 5 furlong pace. And in those days, of course, the fences were still proper fences and there was the usual carnage in behind. I've never seen a race like it. It was breathless. He flew round from the front and stayed there. And I think that really triggered my interest in racing after that.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Mr. Frisk might still hold the course record, or at least the race has been modified since, I don't know, but at the time anyway, it was a course record. Vincent, earliest Grand National memories for you, or best Grand National memories?
Oh, I can remember Red Rum. I'm that old, yeah. Yeah, look, it was always
Boynehaven, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Careful.
It was always a big thing in our house. The whole family would have little bets on it, €1 each way or whatever, and back in the old day, £1 each way. And we'd all sit around, everyone would watch it. It was fantastic, and you'd cheer your horse on to about 2 fences till it fell, and it was great fun. Obviously, it's changed a huge amount now. It's not the same race, but it still has that something about it, doesn't it? That you still feel the magic. There's always a magic story every year with the winner. There's something about it every time, and it's fantastic. Not quite the spectacle maybe it was, but maybe that's it. That's a good thing because there's not as much carnage in it as there used to be. So like you have a chance here having a bet in it, whereas years ago it was a lottery. It was just literally stick a pin in it. Not quite that anymore. I think there's some class horses in it again this year. It should be a great race. Really looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Without further ado, what we're going to do, we're going to get to the runners and riders. We're going to split this up. We're going to go through them individually. Vincent, you can kick us off. You're going to take the top 4. We're going to kind of go in that cycle throughout. Number 1 on your race card is last year's winner, Minella Times. Rachael Blackmore back for more success. £15 higher than last year. How do you sum up his chances?
Yeah, I find it very difficult to think it has a leading chance this time round. Obviously, a very good winner of the race last year, won 6.5 lengths, but got a dream run all the way around. Fantastic for Rachael. She gave it an absolutely fantastic ride, and it was a brilliant performance. I'd be very surprised if this horse repeats it this year. Obviously, the increased weight is a big issue, but then on top of that, it's had 2 runs since the race last year. It took a very heavy fall at Punchestown in December, and then had no show in Leopardstown in February, where it was pulled up, trailing from early on, and that it'll be a big leap of faith for me to see this horse repeated. I don't think this is going to be one of these 2-time winners. That's my opinion on it. Moving on then to number 2, we've Delta Work. This is a winner from Cheltenham, won the cross-country race in Cheltenham. Bit infamous for that because it beat Tiger Roll. Tiger Roll, who'd won this race twice before, and people were a little bit disappointed to see Tiger Roll get beaten on his final start of his career. But having said that, Delta Work, great performance. Jack Kennedy rode him. He rides again here. Jack Kennedy was 5th in the race last year on Farcla, also for Gordon Elliott. And this horse was very high class. He beat the Gold Cup winner 14 lengths. That's a Plutard. He beat him 14 lengths in a novice chase 3 years ago, which shows the level of form he was at. He has no problem with the ground. He's a definite contender. He should stay with a clear round. I'd expect to see him somewhere in the frame. Then we move on to number 3, Easyland. It's the JP McManus horse, was trained in France. He's a cross-country specialist. He's since moved to John Joe O'Neill. It's going to be father and son here, John Joe and John Joe. And the last time we had that was in 2000 when the Walshes, Ruby and his father Ted, won the race. He's been terrible form since he came from France. He's had 3 runs, pulled up each start. Very difficult to see him being a contender. Having said that, he's still a young horse. He's only 8, so you couldn't completely rule him out. Moving on to number 4, which is Annie Second Now. This is Ted Walsh and Mark Walsh rides it, who's no relation, but a very good rider. And this horse has been laid out for this race. He was very unlucky in it last year. Finished third, got badly hampered halfway and stopped to a walk, came home very strongly. He's a major player again, definitely been primed for this. So you would think he'll be somewhere involved at the end of this with a clear run.
You would do, wouldn't you? Stephen, you can kick us off horse number 5 on your card. Run Wild Fred.
Yeah, this is a good starting point for me because this is my betting expert, Napa. I really am keen on him. He's 25-20 in places. He's had 2 runs over a sort of stamina testing trip, 3 mile 5, 3 mile 6. All the other forms at 3 mile 1. He's quietly progressive. He's only had 11 runs. He's the right age. I thought at Cheltenham last time in that National Hunt Chase, Ed, you remember the ground had dried out back to sort of goodish ground. And I think he was just tapped a little bit in a race that was not truly run, done for speed after the last. He's a thorough stayer. I'm pretty confident he'll stay. Good to softish ground should be absolutely ideal. Davy Russell's booked. Obviously, he's won it twice with Tiger Roll. I think everything's in place for a really big run. He ticks an awful lot of boxes. And there are a lot of negatives at the front of the market, and there's an awful lot of rags who are hard to fancy. I mean, I still think it's 14-1 the field. I've got to be honest. But Run Wild Fred was top of my shortlist. Number 6, Lost in Translation. Well, he started off the season with a bang. He won at Ascot. It was a messy race that fell apart. 3 disappointing runs since. He didn't make any impression last time at Cheltenham under a negative ride. I don't think he'll stay. I always look at Colin Tisdale's horses. He just runs them. So, when they're sort of 100-1, which I'd imagine this one will be on the exchanges, they're worth looking at, but it's hard to fancy, really. Number 7, Brahma Bull, Willie Mullins, where it looks about well down the pecking order there. Brian Hayes booked to ride. Loads of numbers. Loads of letters in his form recently, pulled up very disappointing and unseated when beaten last time. Not for me. He looks at least 150, 200-1. And then number 8, Burrows Saint, who you can make a case for. I thought he travelled longest on the bridle in 2021 in the race Minella Times won, but he did look a non-stayer. Now, maybe if the ground dries out, we get a lovely sunny day on Saturday, I could see him running a big race. He is on my shortlist of 4, Burrows Saint. I like the fact Paul Townend's chosen him. I think he's been trained with this race in mind. He's obviously got a big weights pull with Minella Times. I can see him giving you, and this is what people say, Ed, isn't it? Giving you a good run for your money
into your
for
losing.
finishing 5th. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I always like that saying. I often say it myself. It's absolute nonsense, isn't it? Yeah. But I think he could go well on the bridle for a very long way, Burrows Saint.
Yeah, absolutely. A strong traveller, as we saw last year. Right, I'm going to kick off Mount Ida, horse number 9 on your cards. Dennis O'Regan on board for Gordon Elliott. Cheap pieces on for the first time for this individual. It was very disappointing in the Mayor's Chase at the Cheltenham Festival, but that was on quickish ground over 2.5 miles. I do think she'll be served by this proper test of stamina. Let's not forget she won the Kim Muir over an extended 3.25 miles at Cheltenham, which incidentally was the longest trip she'd ever run over, and she put in a career best performance. So question marks about her, but should be suited by the step back up in trip. Horse number 10, Longhouse Poet from Martin Brazil, of course, who won this race back in 2006. Number 6, Valverde in Slippers Madden in the saddle. Light on experience over fences, this 8-year-old. Only had 6 chase starts, but is still relatively unexposed. He's a very good jumper. My biggest concern would be the ground. The quote from the Brazil yard is, this lad cannot have it soft enough. Well, I think they'll be quietly hoping the old sprinkler system comes on in the middle of the night on Friday night at Aintree and keep the ground on the soft side for him. But nonetheless, very progressive profile. Won the Taisti. He's a good style. Looks as though he will really stay. Horse number 11 on your cards. Fiddler on the Roof. Brendan Powell in the saddle for Colin Tizard team. Only 8-year-old again, like Longhouse Poet, but plenty of experience under his about this individual. Ran really well and defeated Ascot last time out. Previously to that was runner-up at Newbury in the Ladbrokes Trophy under a big weight when pulling a long way clear of the third. I got a sneaky feeling this horse will really improve for a proper test of stamina. He's given that indication on the last couple of times. Perhaps a real marathon test is what is required. And the Colin Tizard team, well, they've been in good form recently. Horse number 12, 2 for Gold. A horse who's had a very good season for the Kim Bailey team. David Bass in the saddle. Wasn't disgraced last time out at all in the Grade 1 behind Fakir Duderi over a trip arguably too short. Before that, saw some very useful types at Lingfield. Again, a horse with plenty of form on very deep ground, and maybe this extended of 4.25 miles will help negate that. But I think Connections secretly would be hoping for a lot of rain. Right, that comes back around full circle to you, Vincent. Horse number 13, Santini. Take it away.
Yeah, 13. Lucky for some. It's a great jumper. This horse, he's a former high-class horse when trained by Nicky Henderson. Was beaten a neck in the 2020 Gold Cup. So it shows the level of form that he has at his best, but he's been nowhere near that level for New Connections. The one positive for me is he races prominently, which is definitely a plus in the National in recent years. You want to be up at the pace. This horse will be up at the pace, but for me, he's an outsider, but an outsider with a little bit of a squeak. Then we move on to number 14, Samcro. This would bring the house down if this one won. Looked a superstar in the beginning of his career, won a point to point, and then 7 straight wins on the track. He looked destined for the top, the real top in every sense of it. He won twice at the Cheltenham Festival as well, but he's only looked a shadow of his former self recently. He's one you draw a line through. Samcro surely can't win this, but my God, if he does, God only knows where he'll be.
They thought he'd win a Gold Cup at one stage, didn't they?
More than one Gold Cup, I'd say.
Exactly.
They thought he'd win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he was going to be an absolute star, but his form is gone. So for me, he's a no. He had a terrible run in the North on St. Patrick's Day. I think it was the last day he ran, which was Gold Cup Day, or during Cheltenham, ran terribly. And then we move on to number 15, Ascaria 10, another Gordon Elliott one ridden by Adrian Heskin. This horse is very lightly raced. You could make a case for this. It was third in the 4 miler at Cheltenham last year, and pulled up in the Irish National. Looked like it mightn't have stayed that day, to be honest. But it had a much improved run the last day. It was only beaten and nosed by Any Second Now on its most recent run. That was in first time blinkers. The blinkers are retained. Wouldn't put you off that one if that was one you fancied. On to number 16, which is Good Boy Bobby, ridden by Daryl Jacob. Daryl Jacob himself has won this race. He won it in 2012 on a 33-1 chance in Neptune Calange. Good Boy Bobby is also going to be around that price, 33-1. It's a prolific winner. It's won 10 of its 24 starts. Not sure to stay, and has no experience over these fences, which is definitely a worry.
Yeah, interesting. The selection of Daryl Jacob. I presume he had the choice of all the Simon Monier horses. Yeah, Good Boy Bobby for Nigel Twiston-Davis. With Stephen, we're coming to you. Sorry, Lord de Menil for the Richard Hobson team. Horse number 17 on the cards.
Yeah, 17 Lordham is no encouragement at all this season. Pulled up in this race last year and has been running badly. If he wins, the bookmakers will be getting the champagne out. He looks about 500-1. I mean, just one thing to say quickly. And a lot of these races are not at these prices that the firms have come up with are not tested on the exchange. There's a lot of horses being lazily priced at sort of 50, 66. It will be 4 times bigger on the exchanges on the day. And I mean, horses like Lord de Mesnil, he looks absolutely impossible. I mean, he will be running for the bookmakers. It's very hard to make a case for him. Cocoa Beach is only a 7-year-old, which surprised me when I was going through the form. I think he's run 23 times under rules in total. He's another one who lost his way and ran very badly last time out, absolutely tailed off. Loads to find on that form. He's got one good run this season when he finished 4th in over 3 mile 4, I believe.
The last 7-year-old winner of the Grand National. Do you know when that was?
No, go on. When was that?
1940. So there's one for your trends gurus. A big trend to try and buck there for a horse of that age.
Yeah, I mean, you're always entitled to give the Irish horses maximum respect, but he does look hard to fancy on recent form. De Counter, I don't like the fact he's only had one run this season. I would imagine he's a horse with loads of problems. Emma Lavelle's had a good year. Adam Wedge, one of the best jockeys riding, is booked. Perhaps he'd be a livelier outsider than some. And I don't fancy Kildesart. I know he's been tipped up in a few places because he was very eye-catching at Newbury, but that was his first run for 462 days. He's a prime bounce candidate, a very, very doubtful stayer. And Ben Pauling, who'd looked like things might be turning around, is 0 from 20 in the last fortnight at the time of recording. So I don't fancy Kildesart. I don't really fancy any of those 4 at all.
Absolutely. Line through those then. On to horse number 21 on your cards. Discorama. Paul Nolan and Brian Cooper. Cheap pieces gone for the first time. This horse finished 7th in this race last year, well beaten in the end, but has had a better preparation this time round, had an interrupted prep last time. It's £1 lower. Of course, this horse should stay. I mean, he was second in the National Hunt Chase when it was the 4-miler at the Cheltenham Festival back in 2019. So clearly we'll have each way followers at a price. Topville Ben, horse has been running really well for the Kirby team this season. Would the horse perhaps want a bit of softer ground? I don't know. But as I said, it's been running really well, and it goes over a marathon trip for the first time, despite being 10, a little bit of an unknown quantity in some respects. So, again, another one you can make an each-way case for. Clearly will jump and have some fun. Enjoy Dallin, an individual in the Kieran Murphy yard. Connor Orr on board, who's actually, I believe, if I'm wrong, Vincent could pick me up on this, but I think Kieran Murphy, did he phone JP McManus almost pleading to sell him this horse, and the great man obliged or something along those lines?
Yeah, what's interesting with this horse is this was Kieran Murphy's first ever winner. It was previously trained by Peter Fahey. So the first day he had it, it won. And he said at that stage, he said, a spring horse over staying trips. So this is a spring race over a staying trip. So maybe there's a chance. The fact JP bought it is interesting in itself.
Interesting, yeah. Off 148, 10 stone 11. Definitely an eye catcher. Annabelle Fly, horse number 24, 12 years young now. Also has a very good record in this. Was 4th in 2018, 5th in 2019. Never went a yard last year, though. At the age of 12, you do just wonder whether father time is starting to creep up on that one. Back to you, Vincent. Number 25 on the cards would be Dingo Dollar.
Yes, ridden by Ryan Mania. Pulled up on its only previous go over the course. Second in the Scottish National last season, so you couldn't completely rule this out. It obviously stays, but it's going to be an outsider, not one for me. Then we move on to number 26, which is Freewheelin' Dylan. This caused a major shock when it won the Irish Grand National last year at 150 to 1. Very hard to see it win again, to be honest with you. I think it'll be a major surprise if it does. What's interesting is it ran in the cross-country race in Cheltenham in November, and it unseated at the Aintree fence, which is a bad sign in itself. Then we go on to number 27, which is Class Conti. This will be a bit of a shock here. Not a bad horse in France, but then lost his way. So then he joined Willie Mullins. He won on his first start for him in Tremor in April 2019, and then he's since lost his way again. Maybe these fences might just spark something in him, but it's very hard to see. Then we move on to number 28, which is Noble Yates. This is a 7-year-old, that you say, really bad record for 7-year-olds in this race. It's going to be ridden by Sam Welly Cohn, amateur rider who's got great experience. This is due to be his last ride, as far as I know. He's going to hang up his boots after this one. Cheek pieces go on for the first time. The trainer is very astute, Emmett Mullins, but the recent form is nothing to write home about. I'd be very surprised.
Stephen, horse number 29 on your cards, Mighty Thunder.
Yeah, Mighty Thunder, of course, the Scottish National winner, but that was last year. Very dangerous business looking back through the form book and ignoring recent runs. He's gone with no encouragement at all on his last 2 starts. And Lucinda Russell is 0 from 26 in the last fortnight, which would be a minor concern. He should stay, which is not something you can say about all of them. That shouldn't be a problem, but he just looks badly out of sorts. He comes here 63 days after falling out the back of the television at Musselburgh, a long way out on decent ground. So hard to find an excuse for that. Cloth cap, of course, John Joe O'Neill, Tom Scudamore. But the numbers people will make a case for him, won't they? He's well treated. He's slipped down the weights. But again, that
favourite last year, wasn't he?
Yeah, sent off, gambled on favourite last year, but weakened very tamely, a long way out. And last time it looks like a revival, but it wasn't. He was weakening tamely again. There's something amiss with him. I don't think a falling mark will help his fortunes. I don't think he'll get home. He's another one of these horses, 25 to 1. I mean, he's a similar price to Run Wild Fred. One of them's progressive on the up, likely to stay, and this one's got loads to prove. Probably be against him a place. Number 31, likely to start favourite, Snow Leopardess. Very progressive, 3 from 3 this season. A brilliant jumper, banger. Aintree in the Beecher absolutely annihilated them a mile out. And Exeter last time won a race that fell apart, but again went with real zest, jumping well. Ed, you know what? Could give you a good run for your money. I'm not sure Snow Leopardess will stay.
Right.
For a horse who's now 7 to 1, 4 mile 2 is absolutely uncharted territory. Ran at Cheltenham last year in the National Hunt Chase, 3 mile 6. Well beaten there. Dropped back in trip for most this season. You're certainly going into uncharted territory with a horse who's likely to get a very, very positive ride and what is bound to be a contested pace. There won't be any solos on the lead, I wouldn't have thought, in this race. So I think Snow Leopardess is liable to go well, jump well, run well, but is a terrible price now.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't want to take less than 20. I think, you know, she's a fantastic, she's great. I suspect she'll be the one that those of us, you make a book on the exchange, you'll probably have one of your worst losers, to be honest, because she could end up being she's going to be the public horse, I'd have thought, once they've all had a look at her at 4:45, you know, for half an hour.
To say 1951, the last time a mare won this race as well. So there's another huge trend to try and buck with that.
I mean, she's done it over the Aintree fences. That used to be a big plus, but as we were discussing off air, these Aintree fences now, I mean, the fences at Southall are a stiffer test than Aintree. They're basically cotton wool bits of fluff. As I was explaining to Danny Mullins how he should ride the other day, with all my experience of race riding, that, you know, it's a simple little pot around now, isn't it? Actually, it's still absolutely terrifying. There's 40 horses going a million miles an hour, but the fences do not take much jumping. Maybe Snow Leopardess has got the Aintree experience, but I don't think will stay. Augusta Gold was well back last time. That's number 32 in a small field in Ireland and did run a bit better, but it was small field form. Went off the front, the mare. Does stay 3 mile 4. Don't think he'll stay 4 mile 2. Looks at least 150, 200 to 1. Danny's on, of course, our usual guest. So hopefully he'll get a good spin off her, but I rather doubt it.
Indeed.
I've got, that's me, I think.
So you're spot on to me now for Phoenix Way, horse number 33, for Kevin Brogan and Harry Fry. Horse has been running well this season. Won very nicely. Look back to his best when winning at Ascot on his penultimate start. I think with that, though, that was over 2 miles, 5 furlongs. His win at Warwick last season was over 2. He does have some form from his hurdling days over 3 miles, but has to be a doubtful stayer and arrives here on the back of a full at Kempton. Horse number 34, Adisha Arbor for Tom O'Brien and Philip Hobbs. So Philip Hobbs' team been a bit quiet as of late. This horse, though, looks a proper thorough stayer, doesn't he? Has a wonderful record at his beloved Sandown. And, of course, ran well in a hurdle here behind Kashari back in November over 3 miles. Loves soft ground, loves Sandown. Obviously, this is a different ball game altogether. I do think there is the chance on drying ground he could potentially become a little bit detached. Horse number 35, Black Lion. He's having a bit of a revival to his career, isn't he? The 13-year-old former Cheltenham Festival winner when trained by Nigel Twiston-Davis with the Dan and Harry Skelton combination here. 13 years young. I've been in very good form at Haydock at the back end of last year. Things went amiss last time out at Haydock in the Grand National Trial, it has to be said. So question marks about that horse coming to this on the back of a no-show. Then we have Robbie Power on board for Henry de Bromhead with Poker Party, who won the Curry National going back a few years ago, but just hasn't been firing all cylinders recently. And in the cross-country at Cheltenham last time out was very disappointing. So hard to make a strong case for that 10-year-old, despite only having 10 stone 8 on his back. Back to you, Vincent, for the last 4, kicking off with number 37, Death's Duty.
Death's Duty, yeah, this is a lively outsider. Jordan Gainford is booked, one of the better young riders in Ireland at the minute. He'll be really excited about this. I would have thought this horse has a definite chance of running into a place at least. He was a very decent horse about 3 years ago, and then his form tailed off, but he bounced back to win a Grand National Trial at Punchestown in February, which is obviously a good marker for this. And then he went to Cheltenham, finished 6th in the Ultimate Chase there, another staying chase. Wouldn't be surprised to see him run well at a big price. Then we have number 38, Domaine de Ile. Harry Bannister rides this. The one claim to fame for this horse is it was 4th to Snow Leopardess in the Beecher Chase. But you'd like to think, oh yeah, it's run over the course, but it was still beaten over 20 lengths. It was 22 lengths behind Snow Leopardess. Very hard to see that, a real outsider. Number 39, a lot of people interested in this one, Eclair Surf. Tom Bellamy takes the ride, a real improver. It's got a lightweight. It's never run over the course, but it has been running very well. Its one big run is it finished a close second to Win My Wings in the Eider Chase, which is a real staying race over a very similar distance to this in February. And then Win My Wings went on to win the Scottish National. So a lot of people tying those pieces of form together. There'll be a lot of money for that. Eclair Surf, a lot of people will fancy. A lot of shrewd punters seem to think it is a good each way chance. And then we move on to the last horse in the race, number 40, Fortescue. This horse has a little squeak here as the bottom weight. Well back to beat Fiddler on the Roof at Ascot in February. Has been finishing out his races really well. that's something now that he could relish this challenge. This is something I wouldn't rule him out. He mightn't be up there in the early part, but he could really be coming home strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Hugh Nugent on board for the Henry Daly team. Right, that wraps up all 40 runners and riders. Hopefully you've pointed you in the right direction, but I'm not going to let you go, gents, without nailing your colours to the mask. Vincent, you can kick us off just to make things really easy. I'd like your Grand National 1, 2, 3, 4, please.
Okay, the first one, the one I really like is Longhouse Poet. Martin Brazel trains this. He's won the race before, as you say, 2006 with number 6 Valverde. It also won an Irish Grand National, that horse. This horse landed a hell of a gamble to win the Tayestes Chase in January in Gordon Park. That's a real trial for these sort of staying Grand National races. And he won it well. He's a definite contender. He races up at the pace. Another thing that's definitely a plus here as well. Obviously, the ground will be somewhat of a concern depending on how it rides, but presuming they've watered it enough, there has been rain during the week, softish ground, he's a definite contender. For my number 2 spot, I'm going to pick Delta Work. Obviously won the cross-country chase in Cheltenham, which we know is a real marker for this, because Tiger Roll did it a couple of years in a row. The same thing. Jack Kennedy rides, one of the top riders. Well-fancied, should be there or thereabouts. We're presuming they all get clear runs and clear rounds, and then I would expect him to be a contender. Number 3 I'm putting in is Any Second Now. Very unlucky in the race last year. Ted Walsh has lined the horse up for it. Be surprised if he's not involved. He can't get as bad a run as he got last year, and he still finished 3rd. So he should be in thereabouts again. And then for 4th, I could have picked anyone at 20, I'd say, but the one I'd plump for is Brendan Powell, one of the top riders in England at the moment, riding Fiddler on the Roof. Generally a very consistent horse, has never fallen, still quite a young horse. He's only 8. Wouldn't be a surprise to see this test could really spark something back into him, and he could run a big race. Wouldn't be surprised to see him make the frame.
Wonderful. It's easy as that. There's the 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, Stephen, your turn.
But it's about this time, Ed, we should be handing over to John Hanmer, shouldn't we, as they cross the Melling Road. My 4, I Run Wild Fred, 20-25 to 1. He's only had 11 runs over fences. He's unexposed, ridden by a genius. The ground should be absolutely ideal. I think he's the one who is still slightly overpriced in the market. Delta Work was number 2. I was very impressed with the way he beat Tiger. I still can't believe he did beat Tiger. It was an incredible performance. He's won 5 Grade 1s. He has got that touch of class, and he does look quite well treated, I must admit. I think he'll probably stay. He has got a really good record over fences, 7 from 16, and he did look back to land the cash in the cross country. I should think he'll run very well. Burrows Saint, I think, will run well and probably be in the frame as long as it doesn't get too soft. He's a very smooth traveller. I think he's been trained with this race in mind, and I think he'll run well. And Minella Times, the 4th Irish horse I've gone for, who won it last year. The only thing I was clutching at, I am disappointed with the price now. I thought it'd be a lot bigger price. He's sort of halved in the last couple of weeks, and he's £15 higher than last year. But Henry de Bromhead, obviously been out of form for months of the season, but he's going a lot better now. And it does look like this one has been prepared to come right on the day. And there has been the right money around. It's not been tipping line or mug money. It has been quite well backed to, and Rachel's booked. So that was number 4. But it's really wide open. I think you want, Ed, we always say this, you've got to get extra places. There's 6 with almost all the firms. There's 7. There'll be 8 on the day for sure. And that's where you've got to place your money, really.
Yeah, you might get me off my I'm usually a win-only merchant. Yeah, you might actually tempt me into some of these each way concessions for the big one. So a clean sweep for the Irish for Stephen there. I've got a bit of a mix going on here, but I'm with Fiddler on the Roof to bring it home for Team Tizard. I think this horse will be really suited by a marathon trip. I thought he shaped like that at Ascot last time, and especially on his penultimate start in the Ladbrokes Trophy, went up to 3.25 miles for the first time. He was not stopping at the finish. He's a brilliant jumper. He'd be ridden really promptly. He's often up there in the first 2 or 3. I think he can put in a good run for your money, to use Stephen's quote. But no, I think he's a serious contender there. Horse number 2, I'm going with Longhouse Poet, as Vincent touched upon, for the Martin Brazil team. I think this horse will really enjoy a proper test of stamina. Of course, we don't really know until they go and do it, but we saw with Minella Times last year, went beyond 3 miles, 1 furlong for the first time, really excelled. And everything I've seen from Longhouse Poet, despite him still being a relatively not experienced over fences, he shapes as though a real test of stamina, will bring his A game to the table. Right, I've gone for a left of field one here. I know Stephen put a line through it, but I think Kildesart could run a huge race for trainer Ben Paulding. That's his first runner in the Grand National. It's also a lot of back classes, beating a neck in an ultimate handicap chase on heavy ground once upon a time. And absolutely bolted up at this meeting in a 3-mile handicap chase over the regulation fences back in 2019. On the comeback trail after injury, but he's dropped down the weights. I think he could go well at a price. And then, like Vincent, for my 4th place selection, I was kind of throwing the pin a little bit. I wanted to put Dow to work in there, but I thought that's a bit boring. So I'm going for one you're going to laugh at here, but I do generally think Santini can run a really big race in the Grand National. We've been saying for ages on the Jump To It shows, he's thoroughly paceless and he needs a trip. Well, he's an excellent jumper. That is the one thing he is. He really does jump for fun. He's gloriously one-paced. I think 4.25 miles round Aintree could serve him really well. I would not be shocked at 40-1 if he was in the places. And as Stephen rightly points out, some firms could they'll be tripping over themselves tomorrow. You could get 10 places if you shop around. So do keep your eyes on that. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. We've got the Grand National done and dusted. I think it's fair to say. Before we go, you watch it on the box, barbecue parties, jacuzzi parties, and that's your kind of thing, Vincent. I mean, how are you going to be watching the race?
Yeah, you're right. The jacuzzi is the one for me. Yeah. As Santini beats Sam Crow, a short head. No, I'll watch it. I'll watch it at home. I'd imagine there's a chance I'll go up to the pub, but I'd say I'm more likely to watch it at home. And should be fun.
It should be, shouldn't it? And Stephen, yourself?
Yeah, my son's back from university, so doubtless the last bet he had, we went to Glorious Goodwood. He had a 5 each way on something that I put in my pocket. I just couldn't be bothered to walk to the bookmakers, and it won at 50-1, made all the running. I haven't recovered since, so I'll be laying the family's business, to be honest.
Right, raid those piggy banks, right? Yeah, absolutely. Well, best of luck. That should be great fun. Yeah, I'm going to watch it with my dad with a bottle of red wine and a cheese board. I think that's probably the name of the game, and then stay up to all hours watching the golf afterwards. So that's my kind of rigorous Saturday plan. But many thanks for you for watching on Jump To It. And of course, if you do like to have a bet, please do gamble responsibly. We hope we've pointed you in the right direction of the Aintree Spectacular. Join us again next week. We'll be doing a review show, look back at all things Aintree, including this race, of course. But I hope you enjoyed the show. We'll do it all again soon. Bye for now.